Ada Wade stepped off the boardwalk into the dust just as the first fat drops of rain hit Broken Hollow's main street. She had sung 3 songs that afternoon at the Grand Saloon, smiled at men whose names she did not care to learn, and pocketed enough coin to pay another week's rent at the boarding house. Now she needed to disappear before anyone asked where she had come from, or why a woman with her voice was working a 2-bit saloon in a town that barely had a name. She pulled her shawl tighter and kept her eyes down. That was the rule. No eye contact. No lingering. No mistakes. Silas Pruitt watched her from the hitching post outside the feed store, his hat pulled low against the coming storm. He had seen her twice before. Always moving fast. Always alone. The men in town talked about the new singer, the one with the dark hair and the voice that could stop a card game cold. Silas did not go to saloons. He trained horses at Crescent Ranch, kept his head down, and stayed clear of women who drew attention. But something about the way she walked, like she was counting steps to an invisible finish line, made him look twice. She glanced up just as thunder cracked overhead. Their eyes met for half a second. Hers were sharp, guarded, the kind of eyes that had seen trouble and learned to run from it. Then she turned the corner and vanished into the alley behind the general store. Silas straightened, frowning. The rain came harder now, turning the street to mud. He should have gone back to the ranch. He had a mare to work and a fence line to check before dark. But his feet carried him toward the alley instead, slow and deliberate, like he was tracking something that might spook if he moved too fast. When he rounded the corner, she was pressed flat against the back wall of the store, breathing hard, staring at him with her chin up, and her hands clenched at her sides. "I am not following you," Silas said. His voice came out rougher than he meant. "I saw you run. Thought you might need help." "I do not need help," Ada said. Her tone was flat, practiced. She had used that line before. "Go back to wherever you came from." Silas held his ground. Rain dripped from the brim of his hat. He could see the pulse jumping in her throat, the way her shoulders were tight as bowstring. "You look like someone who is waiting for something bad to happen," he said. "Maybe I am," Ada said. "Maybe you should leave me to it." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The rain drummed on the tin roof overhead, loud and relentless. Then, Ada pushed off the wall and walked past him, close enough that he caught the faint smell of lavender and smoke. She did not look back. Silas let her go, but the feeling in his chest stayed, sharp and stubborn, like a splinter he could not pull free. That night, Ada sang at the Grand, and Silas sat at the bar with a whiskey he did not drink. He told himself he was there to settle a debt with the owner, a man named Harker who owed the ranch for a saddle repair. But the truth was simpler and more dangerous. He wanted to see if the woman from the alley was the same woman who stood on that stage, or if she wore a different face when the lights went down and the music started. When she stepped into the glow of the oil lamps, he had his answer. She was the same. Same sharp eyes, same careful posture. But her voice, when she opened her mouth to sing, was something else entirely. It filled the room like smoke, low and aching, the kind of sound that made men stop talking and lean forward without knowing why. Silas stayed until the last song ended. Then he stood, left a coin on the bar, and walked out into the night without looking back. He told himself it did not matter. She was a saloon singer with secrets she did not want to share. He was a horse trainer with a reputation to protect, and a past he had worked hard to bury. They had no reason to cross paths again. But the next morning, when he rode into town to pick up a new bridle, he saw her standing outside the land office with a man in a gray suit and a too-clean hat. The man was talking fast, leaning in close, and Ada's face was pale and tight. Silas slowed his horse. He could not hear the words, but he saw the way her hands were clenched, the way she stepped back and the man stepped forward, closing the distance she tried to make. Silas dismounted and tied his horse. He crossed the street in 4 long strides. "Excuse me," he said, his voice flat and polite. The man turned, irritation flashing across his face. Ada looked at Silas with something close to panic. "You need something," the man said. His tone was sharp, dismissive. "I need to speak to Miss Wade," Silas said. He did not know her last name until he heard it come out of his own mouth. He had guessed, pulled it from the way the bartender had introduced her the night before. The man frowned. "We are in the middle of a private conversation," he said. Silas looked at Ada. "You want to stay here?" he asked. "Or you want to come with me?" It was not really a question. Ada stared at him for 2 long seconds. Then she stepped past the man in the gray suit and walked toward Silas without a word. The man called after her, voice rising. But Ada did not turn around. Silas fell into step beside her, his hand resting on the knife at his belt, just in case the man decided to follow. They walked 2 blocks in silence before Ada finally spoke. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was quieter now, stripped of the careful armor she wore like a second skin. "I did not need saving, but I am grateful you showed up." "Who was he?" Silas asked. "A man who thinks he owns things," Ada said. "Land, water, people. He wants the boarding house where I live. Wants to tear it down and put in a dry goods store. The owner is behind on taxes. He is pushing her to sell." "And you?" Silas said. "I will lose my room," Ada said. "I will have to leave town." Her jaw tightened. "Or I will have to do something I do not want to do." Silas stopped walking. He turned to face her, studying her face in the midday light. She looked tired, worn thin by whatever weight she carried. "What are you running from?" he asked. Ada's eyes went hard. "That is not your business," she said. "Maybe not," Silas said. "But if you are going to stay in this town, you need to know something. People here talk. They notice. You keep your head down and you move fast. But that only works for so long. Eventually someone is going to ask questions you do not want to answer. Then I will leave before that happens," Ada said. She started walking again. Silas watched her go, frustration coiling in his chest. He had tried. He had stepped in. He had given her a way out of whatever mess she was tangled in, and she had thrown it back in his face. He should let it go. He should ride back to the ranch and forget about the woman with the guarded eyes and the voice that made his chest ache. But he did not. Instead, he followed her, slow and deliberate, until she stopped in front of the boarding house and turned to face him. "Why are you following me?" Ada asked. Her voice was tight, edged with something close to fear. "Because you are lying," Silas said. "Not to me, to yourself. You think you can outrun whatever is chasing you, but you cannot. Not forever. Sooner or later it catches up. I know because I tried the same thing." Ada stared at him. "What did you run from?" she asked. "Nothing that matters anymore," Silas said. "I stopped running. I found work. I built something I could stand on. It was not easy, but it was better than looking over my shoulder every day. Ada's shoulders sagged. You do not understand, she said. What I am running from is bigger than a bad choice or a burned bridge. If the wrong person finds me, I will not just lose my room or my job. I will lose everything. Then let me help, Silas said. His voice was quieter now, almost gentle. You do not have to trust me. But you do not have to do this alone either. For a long moment, Ada did not speak. Then she shook her head, slow and deliberate. You cannot help me, she said. No one can. She turned and walked up the steps into the boarding house. The door closed behind her with a soft, final click. Silas stood in the street, rain beginning to fall again, and felt something hard and stubborn settle in his chest. He had no reason to care about a woman who would not even tell him her real name. But he did. And that was the problem. 2 days later, the town gathered in the square for the monthly dance, a tradition that brought ranchers, shopkeepers, and drifters together under strings of lanterns and the thin excuse of community. Silas did not usually go. He had no interest in small talk or the awkward shuffling that passed for dancing in a town like Broken Hollow. But Harker, the saloon owner, had cornered him at the feed store and insisted. You need to show your face, Harker had said. People are starting to think you are some kind of hermit. Besides, the singer is going to be there. Might be your last chance to see her before she skips town. Silas arrived late, just as the fiddle started up, and the first couples took the floor. He stayed on the edge of the square, near the water trough, watching the crowd with half his attention. Then he saw her. Ada stood near the lantern pole, arms crossed, her blue dress replaced by a darker one, simpler, less noticeable. She was alone. Silas started toward her before he could talk himself out of it. When she saw him coming, her eyes widened, and for a second, he thought she might run. But she held her ground. You came, Silas said. I did not have a choice, Ada said. Mrs. Garrett, the woman who owns the boarding house, insisted. She thinks if I make friends, I will stay. Her voice was bitter, resigned. Will you? Silas asked. I do not know, Ada said. She looked past him, her gaze distant. It depends on how long I can keep pretending. Before Silas could answer, a man in a dark coat stepped between them. His face was familiar, sharp-featured, and too clean for a town like Broken Hollow. Silas recognized him from the land office, the man who had been pressuring Ada 2 days before. Evening, the man said. His smile was thin, predatory. Miss Wade, I did not expect to see you here. I thought you preferred to keep to yourself. I do, Ada said. Her voice was flat, controlled. Shame, the man said. A woman like you should not waste her time singing in a saloon. You could do better, much better. He glanced at Silas, dismissive. Who is your friend? Silas, Ada said quickly. Silas Pruitt. He trains horses at Crescent Ranch. The man's smile widened. A horse trainer, he said. How quaint. He turned back to Ada. I have a business proposition for you, Miss Wade. One that could solve all your problems. Why do not we discuss it somewhere private? No, Ada said. Her voice was steady, but Silas saw the fear flicker in her eyes. I think the lady said no, Silas said. His tone was even, but his hand rested on his belt, close to the knife he always carried. The man's smile vanished. "Stay out of this," he said. "This does not concern you." "It does now," Silas said. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Ada put a hand on his arm, light and quick. "Do not," she said. "He is not worth it." The man laughed, sharp and ugly. "Listen to your woman, Pruitt. She knows when to step back." He tipped his hat and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Silas watched him go, jaw tight. When he turned back to Ada, her face was pale, her breathing shallow. "Who is he?" Silas asked. "His name is Garrett Foss," Ada said. "He is buying up half the town. Land, water rights, buildings. He wants control, and he does not care who he hurts to get it." "What does he want from you?" Silas asked. Ada looked away. "He wants me to sing at a new saloon he is building, a place for wealthy men passing through. He says he will pay me more than I make now, but the price is not just my voice." Her hands clenched. I told him no. He did not take it well. Silas exhaled slowly. "You need to leave this town," he said. "Tonight." "I cannot," Ada said. "I have nowhere to go. No money. No one waiting for me." She met his eyes, and for the first time he saw the full weight of what she carried. "I left everything behind when I came here. If I run again, I will have nothing." "Then stay," Silas said. "But not like this. Not hiding. Not alone." Her eyes searched his face. "What are you saying?" she asked. "I am saying you do not have to do this by yourself," Silas said. "I am saying if Foss is a problem, we make him think you are not available. We make him think you are spoken for." Ada stared at him. "You want to pretend we are courting," she said. Her voice was flat, disbelieving. "I want to give you time," Silas said. "Time to figure out your next move. Time to breathe without someone breathing down your neck. If Foss thinks you are with me, he will back off. Men like him do not fight for women who are already claimed." "And what do you get out of this?" Ada asked. Her tone was sharp, suspicious. "Peace of mind," Silas said. "And maybe you sing at the ranch sometime. The men would like that." He tried to smile, but it came out crooked, uncertain. Ada studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded, slow and deliberate. "All right," she said. "But if this goes wrong, if anyone finds out, we walk away. Clean. No strings. No expectations." "Agreed," Silas said. He held out his hand. Ada looked at it, then took it. Her grip was firm, her palm rough from work. They shook once, formal and strange, and then the fiddle struck up again and the crowd surged around them. Silas did not let go of her hand. Instead, he pulled her toward the clearing where couples were dancing, clumsy and laughing under the lanterns. Ada resisted for half a second, then followed. They stepped into the circle of light together, and Silas put one hand on her waist, careful and deliberate. Ada rested her hand on his shoulder. They moved in time with the music, neither of them speaking, both of them aware that every eye in the square was watching. The next morning, Silas rode into town with a plan. He found Ada outside the boarding house, her shawl wrapped tight against the cold wind that blew down from the hills. She looked up when he dismounted, wary and tired. "What now?" she asked. "Now we make this look real," Silas said. Come out to the ranch today. Meet the men. Let them see you with me. Word will get back to Foss by nightfall. Ada frowned. I have to work tonight, she said. Then come this afternoon, Silas said. Just for an hour. I will bring you back before dark. She hesitated, then nodded. All right, she said. But you owe me an explanation. Why are you doing this? You do not know me. You do not owe me anything. Silas looked at her, choosing his words carefully. I know what it is like to need help and not get it, he said. I know what it is like to stand alone and feel like the ground is crumbling under your feet. I am not a hero. I am just a man who knows how to train a horse and fix a fence. But I can do this. So I am going to. Ada's expression softened, just a fraction. Thank you, she said. Her voice was quiet, almost shy. Silas nodded and climbed back onto his horse. He held out his hand. Ada took it and let him pull her up behind him. She wrapped her arms around his waist, tentative and careful, and they rode out of town together. Crescent Ranch sat in a shallow valley 5 miles west of Broken Hollow. A spread of corrals, barns, and a low main house built from weathered timber and stone. Silas had worked there for 3 years, starting as a stable hand and working his way up to head trainer. The owner, a man named Caleb Marsh, was fair but distant, more interested in profit than people. The men who worked the ranch were a rough mix of drifters, ex-soldiers, and boys too young to know better. They respected Silas because he worked harder than anyone else and never asked them to do something he would not do himself. When Silas rode in with Ada, every man in the yard stopped what he was doing and stared. Silas dismounted and helped Ada down. She stood close to him, her hand brushing his arm, a gesture that looked natural but felt deliberate. This is Ada, Silas said, his voice carrying across the yard. She is going to be around for a while. Treat her with respect. The men nodded, some of them grinning, others just curious. Silas led Ada toward the barn, away from the watching eyes. Once they were inside, Ada let out a long breath. That was uncomfortable, she said. It will get easier, Silas said. He walked to the nearest stall, where a gray mare stood waiting. Her ears pricked forward. This is Silver, he said. I have been working with her for 2 months. She was wild when she came in, would not let anyone near her. Now she trusts me. He opened the stall door and stepped inside. The mare nuzzled his shoulder, gentle and familiar. Trust takes time, Silas said. But once you have it, it is solid. Ada watched him, her expression unreadable. What if you break it? She asked. What if you do something that makes her stop trusting you? Then you start over, Silas said. You prove yourself again. You do not give up just because it is hard. He looked at Ada, his gaze steady. That is the difference between running and standing. Running is easier in the moment, but it does not fix anything. Standing is harder, but it gives you something to build on. Ada was quiet for a long moment. Then she stepped into the stall, slow and careful. The mare shifted, wary. Ada held out her hand, palm up, and waited. The mare stretched her neck forward, nostrils flaring, and sniffed Ada's hand. Then she stepped closer and rested her muzzle against Ada's palm. Ada smiled. A real smile, the first Silas had seen from her. She is beautiful, Ada said. She is, Silas agreed. And she knows when someone is afraid. You have to be calm, steady. She can feel it if you are lying. Ada glanced at him, something sharp and knowing in her eyes. Like people, she said. Exactly like people, Silas said. They spent the afternoon at the ranch, Ada watching Silas work, asking questions about the horses, the land, the men. She did not talk about herself, and Silas did not push. By the time the sun started to dip toward the hills, Ada looked lighter, less guarded. Silas saddled his horse, and they rode back to town in comfortable silence. When they reached the boarding house, Ada dismounted and turned to face him. "Thank you," Ada said, "for today, for all of it." "You do not have to thank me," Silas said. "Just be careful. Foss is not going to like this." "I know," Ada said, "but I am tired of being afraid." She reached up and touched his hand where it rested on the saddle horn. "I will see you tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Silas agreed. He watched her walk up the steps and disappear inside. Then, he turned his horse toward the ranch, feeling something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or the beginning of something he had stopped believing in. The trouble started 3 days later. Silas was in the main corral, working a young stallion through a series of turns, when one of the ranch hands came running from the road. "Rider coming," the boy shouted. "Fast. Looks like trouble." Silas handed the stallion's lead to another hand and walked toward the gate. A man on a lathered horse came into view, riding hard. When he pulled up in front of the ranch house, Silas recognized him. It was Tom Briggs, the deputy from Broken Hollow. Briggs dismounted, breathing hard, his face tight with urgency. "Pruitt," Briggs said, "you need to get into town. Now." "What happened?" Silas asked. His chest tightened. "It is the singer," Briggs said. "Ada, wait." Foss showed up at the saloon this morning with a wanted poster. Says her real name is Ada Calloway. Says she is wanted for theft in Kansas. He is pushing the sheriff to arrest her. Silas did not wait. He grabbed his coat, saddled his horse, and rode for town at a full gallop. The wind tore at his face, cold and sharp, but he barely felt it. His mind raced, turning over possibilities, discarding plans that would not work. If Foss had a wanted poster, real or fake, Ada was in serious danger. The sheriff in Broken Hollow was a cautious man, more interested in keeping the peace than in justice. If Foss pushed hard enough, if he made enough noise, the sheriff would arrest Ada just to avoid trouble. And once she was in a cell, Foss would have all the leverage he needed. Silas reached town just as the sun dropped below the horizon. The main street was crowded, more people than usual, all of them gathered in front of the sheriff's office. Silas dismounted and pushed through the crowd. Inside the office, he saw Ada standing in front of the sheriff's desk, her face pale and hard. Foss stood beside the sheriff, a piece of paper in his hand, his expression smug and satisfied. The sheriff, a graying man named Webb, looked tired and unhappy. "Miss Wade," Webb was saying, "I do not want to do this, but if this poster is legitimate, I have to hold you until we can verify the charges." "It is not legitimate," Ada said. Her voice was steady, but Silas could hear the fear underneath. "I have never been to Kansas. I have never stolen anything. This is a lie, and he knows it. She pointed at Foss. Foss smiled. The warrant is signed by a judge in Topeka, he said. You can verify it yourself, Sheriff. I am just doing my civic duty. Silas stepped forward. Webb, he said. The sheriff looked up, surprised. Pruitt, Webb said. This is not your concern. It is, Silas said. Miss Wade is under my protection. If you arrest her, you are going to have to go through me first. Foss laughed, sharp and ugly. Your protection, he said. You have known this woman for a week. You have no idea who she really is or what she has done. Step aside, Pruitt. This does not involve you. Silas did not move. He looked at Ada, saw the desperation in her eyes, the way her hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were white. Then he looked at Webb. Sheriff, he said, give me 24 hours. Let me take her out to the ranch. If the warrant is real, I will bring her back myself. But if it is fake, if this is just Foss trying to force her hand, you will have wasted time locking up an innocent woman. Webb frowned. I do not know, Pruitt, he said. This is irregular. So is arresting someone on a warrant you have not verified, Silas said. His voice was hard now, edged with anger. You know Foss. You know what he does. He buys up land, pushes people out, and does not care who he hurts. This is the same thing. He wants Ada, and he is using the law to get her. Webb looked at Foss, then at Ada, then at Silas. Finally, he sighed. 24 hours, he said. But if you do not bring her back, Pruitt, I will come after you both. Understood, Silas said. He held out his hand to Ada. She took it, her grip tight and trembling. They walked out of the office together, past the crowd, past Foss's cold stare. Silas untied his horse and helped Ada up. Then he mounted behind her and rode out of town, fast and deliberate, before anyone could change their mind. They rode in silence until they were clear of town. Then Ada spoke, her voice raw. You should not have done that, she said. You should have let Webb arrest me. Now you are involved. Now you are at risk. I was already involved, Silas said. The moment I stepped into that alley, the moment I asked you to dance, I was involved. He slowed the horse to a walk. Now you are going to tell me the truth. All of it. Who you really are. What you are running from. Why Foss has a wanted poster with your face on it. Ada was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. All right, she said. But you are not going to like it. They reached the ranch just after dark. Silas led Ada into the main house, past the curious stares of the men in the yard, and into the small room he used as an office. He lit a lamp and sat down across from her. Talk, he said. Ada took a deep breath. My real name is Ada Calloway, she said. I grew up in Missouri. My father was a gambler. My mother was a seamstress. When I was 16, my father lost everything in a card game and disappeared. My mother got sick. I tried to take care of her, but I could not make enough money. She died 6 months later. I was alone. No family. No money. No prospects. She paused, her hands twisting in her lap. A man named Charles Hargrave offered me a job. He ran a boarding house in Kansas City. He said I could work as a housekeeper, earn enough to get back on my feet. I believed him. I was desperate. So I went. What happened? Silas asked. Hargrave was not running a boarding house, Ada said. He was running a gambling den and a brothel. He kept the women locked in, took their earnings, threatened them if they tried to leave. I was there for 3 months before I realized what he was doing. By then it was too late. He had convinced the local law that we were there by choice, that we were criminals, not victims. If I stayed, I would have ended up like the others, broken, trapped. So I stole enough money to buy a train ticket, and I ran. Her voice cracked. I have been running ever since. Silas felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. And the wanted poster? He asked. Hargrave must have filed charges, Ada said. Theft. Maybe more. I do not know. I never looked back. I changed my name. I moved from town to town. I thought I was safe here. I thought no one would find me. She looked at Silas, her eyes wet. But Foss recognized me. Or someone told him. I do not know how he got the poster. But it does not matter. If he gives it to the right people, if he pushes hard enough, I am finished. Silas leaned back, thinking. The lamp flickered, casting long shadows on the walls. You said Hargrave was in Kansas City, he said. Yes, Ada said. And Foss is here, Silas said. How did he get a warrant from Kansas? I do not know, Ada said. Maybe he has connections. Maybe he paid someone. Maybe it is fake. She shook her head. It does not matter. Real or fake, it is enough to destroy me. Silas stood and walked to the window. Outside, the ranch was quiet, the men settling in for the night. He could walk away. He could tell Webb the truth. Hand Ada over and go back to his life. It would be the smart thing to do. The safe thing. But when he looked at Ada, sitting there with her shoulders hunched and her hands shaking, he knew he could not do it. She had trusted him. She had told him the truth. And he was not going to let Foss or Hargrave or anyone else take her down. We are going to fix this, Silas said. His voice was calm, certain. How? Ada asked. There is no fixing this. There is only running. No, Silas said. There is standing. There is fighting. There is making sure the truth comes out. He turned to face her. Foss wants you because you are vulnerable. He thinks he can use you, control you, break you. But he is wrong. You are stronger than he knows. And you are not alone anymore. Ada stared at him. What are you going to do? She asked. First, I am going to verify that warrant, Silas said. If it is real, we fight it. If it is fake, we expose Foss. Either way, we do not run. We stand. And if we lose, Ada asked. Then we lose together, Silas said. But we do not lose without a fight. The next morning, Silas rode back into town alone. He went straight to the telegraph office and sent 3 messages. One to the marshal in Topeka, asking about the warrant. One to a lawyer he knew in Denver, asking for advice. One to a friend in Kansas City, a man named Garrett, who had helped Silas years ago when he needed it most, asking him to dig up anything he could find on Charles Hargrave. Then Silas went to the land office and asked to see the records for the properties Foss had purchased in the last year. The clerk, a nervous young man named Elton, hesitated. Those records are not public, Elton said. They are if someone is using them to break the law. Silas said. His voice was flat, dangerous. I am not asking twice. Elton swallowed and pulled out a thick ledger. Silas spent an hour going through it, making notes. What he found made his jaw tighten. Foss had bought 12 properties in the last 6 months. All of them foreclosed or sold under pressure. 3 of them involved water rights. One of them was the boarding house where Ada lived. Foss was not just buying land. He was building a monopoly. And Ada was in his way. Silas left the land office and went to the saloon. Harker was behind the bar, polishing glasses. Pruitt, Harker said. Surprised to see you. Heard you got yourself tangled up in some trouble. I need to know something, Silas said. He leaned on the bar, his voice low. What does Foss want with Ada? Harker frowned. Same thing he wants with everyone, he said. Control. He offered her a job at his new place. She turned him down. He does not like being told no. What else? Silas asked. Harker hesitated, then sighed. Word is, Foss has a partner. Someone back east with money and connections. They are planning to turn Broken Hollow into a railroad stop. Big plans, big money. But they need the water rights. And they need the town to look respectable. A woman like Ada, with her past, with her voice, she could be an asset or a liability. Foss wants to make sure she is an asset. And if she does not cooperate, Silas said, then he makes her a liability, Harker said. That poster is just the start. If she does not fall in line, he will bury her. Silas straightened. Thanks, he said. Pruitt, Harker called as Silas turned to leave. Be careful. Foss has friends. He plays dirty. So do I, Silas said. He rode back to the ranch, his mind racing. By the time he reached the barn, he had a plan. It was risky. It was dangerous. But it was the only thing that made sense. He found Ada in the corral, watching one of the hands work a young mare. She turned when she heard him approach, her face tight with worry. What did you find? She asked. Enough, Silas said. Enough to know we are right. Foss is not just after you. He is building something. And you are in his way. But he made a mistake. He thought he could scare you into submission. He thought you were alone. He was wrong. So what do we do? Ada asked. We make him think he won, Silas said. We make him think you are cooperating. And then we hit him where it hurts. Ada frowned. I do not understand, she said. Foss wants you to sing at his new saloon, Silas said. So you are going to say yes. You are going to accept his offer. And while you are there, you are going to find out who his partner is, where the money is coming from, and what he is planning. Then we take that information to the marshal and we bury him. That is insane, Ada said. If he finds out what I am doing, he will kill me. Not if I am there, Silas said. I will be with you every step of the way. We do this together. Ada stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded, slow and deliberate. All right, she said. But if this goes wrong, if we do not make it out, I want you to know something. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. I have spent my whole life running from people who wanted to use me, hurt me, control me. You are the first person who ever stood beside me, instead of in front of me or behind me. That matters. You matter. Silas felt something twist in his chest, sharp and painful. You matter too, he said. More than you know. They stood there in the dust and the wind, close enough to touch, but not touching. And for a moment the world narrowed to just the two of them. Then, Ada stepped back, clearing her throat. When do we start? She asked. Tonight, Silas said. We go back to town. You tell Foss you accept his offer. I will be right there with you. That evening they rode into Broken Hollow together. The streets were quieter now, the dance long over, the people back to their routines. Silas tied his horse outside Foss's new building, a 2-story structure with fresh paint and glass windows, far fancier than anything else in town. He followed Ada inside. The main room was empty except for a few workers finishing the bar. Foss stood near the back, talking to a man in a dark suit. When he saw Ada, his face lit up with triumph. Miss Calloway, Foss said. He walked toward her, arms open. I knew you would see reason. I am not here because I see reason, Ada said. Her voice was cold, measured. I am here because I am out of options. You win. I will sing for you. But I have conditions. Foss's smile widened. Name them, he said. I work 3 nights a week, Ada said. I choose my own songs, and I do not take orders from anyone except you. No managers, no handlers, just you. Done, Foss said. He held out his hand. Ada shook it, her grip firm. Silas watched from the doorway, his jaw tight. Foss glanced at him, his expression smug. And you? Pruitt, Foss said. Are you here to make sure your woman behaves? I am here to make sure she is safe, Silas said. Of course, Foss said. He turned back to Ada. You start tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Do not be late. He walked away, already turning his attention to the man in the dark suit. Silas and Ada left the building and walked toward the boarding house. Once they were out of earshot, Ada exhaled slowly. That was easier than I thought, Ada said. That is because he thinks he already won, Sheila said. Now we make him regret it. Over the next 3 days, Ada sang at Foss's saloon while Silas watched from the shadows. She was careful, deliberate, asking questions that sounded innocent but revealed pieces of the larger plan. She learned that Foss's partner was a railroad investor named Edmund Cross, a man with ties to senators and bankers. She learned that the new saloon was just the first piece of a larger development, one that would include a hotel, a bank, and a rail depot. She learned that Foss had been using legal pressure and intimidation to force property owners to sell, and that several people in town were already planning to leave rather than fight him. Silas took the information and sent it to his contact in Denver. The lawyer, a man named Samuel Pierce, wrote back with advice and a warning. What you are describing is fraud and extortion, Pierce wrote. But proving it will require evidence. Documents, signed contracts, witnesses willing to testify. If you can get that, I can help. If you cannot, you are just making noise. Silas showed the letter to Ada. We need proof, he said. Then we get proof, Ada said. Her voice was steady, determined. Foss keeps his records in his office upstairs. I have seen him go up there between sets. If I can distract him, you can get inside. That is too dangerous, Silas said. Everything we are doing is dangerous, Ada said. But we are running out of time. Webb gave you 24 hours. We are already past that. If we do not act now, Foss wins. Silas stared at her, frustration and admiration warring in his chest. You are stubborn, he said. I learned from the best, Ada said. She smiled, faint and tired. Come on, let us finish this. The next night, Ada sang at the saloon while Silas waited outside. When her set ended, she walked upstairs to Foss's office and knocked on the door. Foss opened it, surprised. Miss Calloway, he said. What can I do for you? I need to talk to you about my contract, Ada said. There are a few things I want to clarify. Foss hesitated, then stepped aside. Come in, he said. Ada walked into the office, her heart pounding. Foss closed the door behind her. Downstairs, Silas slipped through the back entrance and climbed the rear stairs, moving fast and quiet. He reached the office door and pressed his ear against the wood. He could hear Ada's voice, calm and steady, asking questions about payment and schedules. He tried the handle. Locked. He pulled a thin piece of metal from his pocket, something he had learned to use years ago, and worked the lock until it clicked. Then, he eased the door open, just wide enough to slip inside. The office was small, cluttered with papers and ledgers. Silas moved to the desk and rifled through the drawers. He found contracts, property deeds, letters from Cross outlining the development plan. He grabbed everything that looked important and stuffed it into his coat. Then, he heard footsteps in the hall. He froze. The door opened. Foss stepped inside, alone. He saw Silas and his face went white with rage. Pruitt, Foss said. His voice was low, dangerous. What the hell do you think you were doing? Getting the truth, Silas said. He straightened, his hand moving to his belt. Foss lunged for a desk drawer. Silas moved faster. He grabbed Foss by the collar and slammed him against the wall. The papers in Silas's coat spilled to the floor. Foss struggled, but Silas held him firm. Where is Ada? Silas demanded. She is downstairs, Foss gasped. Safe. For now. But if you do not let me go, that changes. Silas tightened his grip. You are done, Foss. I have everything I need to bury you. The fraud, the extortion, the fake warrant, all of it. Foss laughed, sharp and bitter. You think anyone will believe you, he said. You are a horse trainer. I am a businessman with connections. You are nothing. Maybe, Silas said. But she is not, and neither are the people you hurt. He shoved Foss toward the desk. Sit down. Do not move. Foss sat, his face twisted with fury. Silas gathered the papers and walked out of the office. He found Ada at the bottom of the stairs, her face pale and frightened. We need to go, Silas said. Now. They ran. They reached the ranch 2 hours later, riding hard through the dark. Silas sent a rider to Denver with the documents, and another to the marshal in Topeka, with a formal request to investigate the warrant. Then, he and Ada waited. The wait was brutal. Every hour felt like a day. Every sound outside made them jump. But on the third day, a telegram arrived from Samuel Pierce. Documents received, it read. Filed complaint with Territorial Court. Arrest warrant issued for Garrett Foss and Edmund Cross. Well done. Silas showed the telegram to Ada. She read it twice, then looked up at him, her eyes wet. "It is over," she said. Her voice was shaking. "It is over," Silas agreed. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. She buried her face in his shoulder and let herself cry, deep shaking sobs that seemed to tear her apart. Silas held her through it, his hand on her back, his voice low and steady. "You are safe," he said. "You are safe now." When the tears finally stopped, Ada pulled back, wiping her face with her sleeve. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we rebuild," Silas said. "You stay here. You work. You sing. You live." He smiled, faint and crooked. "And maybe you let me take you to another dance. A real one this time." Ada laughed, soft and surprised. "All right," she said. "But only if you promise not to step on my feet." "No promises," Silas said. They stood there in the lamplight, close and quiet. And for the first time in a long time, both of them felt something like peace. 3 weeks later, Sheriff Webb rode out to the ranch with news. Foss and Cross had been arrested. The properties they had taken were being returned to their original owners. The boarding house where Ada had lived was safe. The water rights dispute was resolved. Broken Hollow was free. Webb tipped his hat to Ada. "You did good, Miss Calloway," he said. "You did real good." Then he rode away. Ada turned to Silas, her face bright with relief. "It is really over," she said. "It is," Silas said. "So what are you going to do now?" Ada thought for a moment. Then she smiled. "I am going to stay," she said. "I am going to sing. I am going to help Mrs. Garrett rebuild the boarding house. I am going to live." She looked at Silas, her expression soft and open. "And I am going to see where this goes." She gestured between them. "If you want to." "I want to," Silas said. His voice was rough, honest. "I have wanted to since the day I saw you run." "Then let us see," Ada said. She took his hand. "Let us see what it looks like when we stop running and start standing." They walked toward the barn together, hand in hand, the wind at their backs and the sky opening wide above them. The sun was setting, painting the hills in shades of gold and crimson. The ranch was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in longer than either of them could remember, the future felt like something they could build instead of something they had to survive. 6 months later, Ada stood on a small stage at the Grand Saloon, singing to a packed room. Silas sat at his usual spot at the bar, watching her with a quiet smile. The town had changed. New families had moved in. The railroad had broken ground on a depot. Crescent Ranch was thriving, and Ada, who had spent so many years hiding and running, was finally, undeniably herself. When the song ended, she stepped off the stage and walked straight to Silas. He stood to meet her, and she wrapped her arms around his neck. "Take me home," she said. "Home," Silas said. He liked the sound of that. They walked out into the night together, past the lanterns and the laughter, and headed toward the ranch. Toward the life they had built. Toward the trust they had earned. And toward the love that had grown in the spaces between fear and hope. The barn stood at the edge of Crescent Ranch. Weathered wood silvered by 100 seasons. Roof patched with newer shingles that had not yet learned the color of age. Ada paused in the doorway, letting her eyes adjust to the dim gold light filtering through gaps in the plank walls. The smell of hay and leather wrapped around her. Familiar now, comforting in a way she had not expected 6 months ago. Silas was inside, working a young gelding through a series of slow circles, his voice low and steady, more rhythm than words. She watched him for a moment, the way his hands moved on the lead rope, patient and sure, the way the horse responded, ears forward, trusting. He had taught her that. Trust. How to earn it. How to give it. How to live in the space where fear used to be. He glanced up and saw her, and his face softened into a smile that still caught her off guard, still made her chest tighten with something she was learning to call joy. "You are early," Silas said. He handed the gelding to one of the ranch hands and walked toward her, brushing dust from his hands. "I finished early," Ada said. "Harker let me go after 2 songs. Said the crowd was thin tonight." She stepped into the barn, her boots crunching on scattered straw. "I wanted to see you." "I am glad you did," Silas said. He reached out and took her hand, pulling her gently into the deeper shadow near the back stalls. His touch was warm, solid, real. Ada leaned into him, resting her forehead against his shoulder. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and slow, the rhythm that had become her anchor. "I got a letter today," Ada said. Her voice was quiet, almost hesitant. Silas stilled, his hand tightening just slightly on hers. "From who?" he asked. "From a lawyer in Kansas City," Ada said. She pulled back to look at him, her eyes searching his face. "Charles Hargrave is dead. He died 2 months ago. Heart failure. The lawyer said the charges against me were dropped. Officially. There is no warrant anymore. No record. Nothing." She took a shaky breath. "I am free. Really free." Silas cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. "You were always free," he said. "From the moment you walked into this barn and decided to stay, that was freedom. This is just the law catching up." Ada smiled, tears spilling over despite herself. "I know," she said. "But it feels different now. It feels like I can breathe all the way down. Like I do not have to look over my shoulder anymore." She laughed. A soft, broken sound. "Like I can actually have this. Have you. You have me," Silas said. His voice was rough, fierce. "You have had me since the first time I saw you run and decided I was not going to let you do it alone." He kissed her then, slow and deep, and Ada felt the last knot of fear inside her chest finally loosen and fall away. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other and the quiet of the barn. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain. Ada pulled back just enough to look at him. "What do we do now?" she asked. "Now," Silas said. "We live. We work. We build something that lasts." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "And maybe, if you are willing, we make it official." Ada's breath caught. "Official," she repeated. Silas smiled, a little crooked, a little nervous. "I am asking you to marry me, Ada. I am asking you to stay. Not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you want to be here. With me." He hesitated, then added, "I know I am not much. Just a man who works with horses and fixes fences. But I will stand beside you for as long as you will let me. I will fight for you. I will build with you. And I will never, ever ask you to be anything other than exactly who you are." Ada felt something break open inside her. Something warm and wild and impossibly good. "Yes," she said. Her voice was steady now, sure. "Yes, I will marry you. I will stay. I will build this life with you." She kissed him again, fierce and claiming. "You are not just a man who works with horses," she said when she pulled back. "You are the man who saved me, who stood when I was ready to run, who saw me when I was trying to disappear. You are everything." Silas pulled her close, his arms tight around her, and for a moment they just stood there, breathing together, letting the weight of the moment settle into something real and solid. Then he laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy. "We should tell the men," he said. "They are going to want to throw a party." "Let them," Ada said. She smiled, bright and unguarded. "Let the whole town know. I am done hiding. I am done running. I am Ada Calloway, and I am going to marry Silas Pruitt. And I am going to sing at my own wedding, and I do not care who knows it." Silas grinned. "That is the woman I fell in love with," he said. They walked out of the barn hand in hand into the golden light of late afternoon. The ranch spread out before them, familiar and solid, the kind of place that could hold a life, a future, a story worth telling. The men saw them coming and started to cheer before Silas even said a word. Ada laughed, her head thrown back, her face lit with something she had not felt in years. Happiness. Simple, uncomplicated, earned. The wedding took place 3 weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon when the sky was clear and the wind was soft. They held it at the ranch, in the yard between the barn and the main house, with chairs borrowed from the church and wildflowers picked from the hills. Ada wore a new dress, simple and white, made by Mrs. Garrett with careful hands and a smile that would not quit. Silas wore his best coat, brushed clean, his hair slicked back in a way that made Ada laugh when she first saw him. Sheriff Webb stood up as witness. Harker brought whiskey. Half the town showed up, including people Ada had never spoken to, people who had heard her sing and wanted to see her happy. The ceremony was short, just a few words spoken by a traveling preacher who happened to be passing through. Ada and Silas stood facing each other, hands clasped, eyes locked. And when the preacher said, "You may kiss your bride," Silas did not hesitate. He pulled Ada into his arms and kissed her like they were the only two people in the world. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. Ada laughed against his mouth, her hands fisted in his coat, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. Afterward, there was food and music and dancing. Ada sang, her voice clear and strong, and Silas danced with her under the lanterns strung between the barn and the house. His arms around her waist, his face soft with love. They danced until the stars came out, until the music slowed and the crowd began to drift away, until it was just the two of them standing in the yard, holding each other in the quiet. "I never thought I would have this," Ada said. Her voice was soft, almost wondering. "A home, a husband, a life that feels like mine." "You always had it," Silas said. "You just had to stop running long enough to see it." He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. "I am proud of you, proud of who you are, proud that you chose me. I will always choose you," Ada said. She looked up at him, her eyes bright with tears and laughter. "Every day." every moment, for as long as we both breathe. Silas smiled, and it was the kind of smile that came from deep inside, the kind that said he believed her. They walked toward the house together, toward the life they had built and the future they would share. The stars wheeled overhead, vast and constant. The wind whispered through the grass. And Ada Calloway Pruitt, who had spent so many years hiding and running and surviving, finally came home. The years that followed were not without challenges. There were droughts and hard winters. There were horses that would not break, and fences that fell in storms. There were nights when Ada woke from nightmares of locked rooms and men who wanted to own her, and Silas held her until the fear passed. There were mornings when Silas's old injuries ached and he moved slow, and Ada made him coffee and rubbed the knots from his shoulders until he could work again. But through it all, they stood. They stood together, side by side, partners in every sense of the word. Ada continued to sing, not just at the Grand, but at barn dances and church gatherings, and anywhere people wanted to hear a voice that could still a room. She taught music to the children in town, showed them how to find their own voices, how to stand on a stage without fear. Silas built Crescent Ranch into one of the best horse operations in the territory, training mounts for ranchers and lawmen, and anyone who needed an animal they could trust. Together they became a fixture in Broken Hollow. The couple people pointed to when they wanted to prove that good things could grow in hard ground. And at night, when the work was done and the stars came out, they sat on the porch of the house they had built together. Ada's head on Silas's shoulder, his hand wrapped around hers, and they talked about everything and nothing. They talked about the past, the things they had survived, and the things they had lost. They talked about the future, the ranch they would grow, and the family they might one day have. But mostly they just sat in the quiet, content to be together, content to have found in each other the one thing they had both been searching for all along.